Hydras.
Ah, yes, hello, my fellow dungeon masters. Yes, come in, sit. Today we shall examine a creature that embodies the very essence of primal terror and formidable tenacity, the Hydra. This monstrous beast is renowned for its numerous heads, ranging from 5 to as many as 50. It has relentless regenerative powers, and is to be considered a force of nature rather than a sentient being. The Hydra's sheer presence on the battlefield is a testament to its terrifying might. Prepare yourselves to delve into the intricacies of this legendary creature and understand why it commands such fear and respect. Its intelligence is compared to that of a wild animal, and its alignment tends to be neutral, driven more by instinct than any form of reasoning. A Hydra's most notorious feature is its unparalleled regenerative ability. Sever one of its heads, and 2 more will swiftly take its place. Confronting such a beast is no simple task. So, how does one overcome this formidable adversary? Well, my dear students, you must burn the creature. Burn it with the fury of the 9 hells. Yet, even with such relentless fire, the Hydra may not yield. You must ensure that the heads are destroyed and the wounds are seared to prevent further regeneration, which I might remind you is not permanent. You must keep applying flames until it is dead and done. It is best to tackle such a beast with careful planning, many allies, and thoughtful consideration before even venturing into its domain. You see, young dungeon masters, the Hydra prefers swamps and marshlands, which on account of its remarkable ability to hold its breath for up to 60 minutes, and the size of the creature able to easily maneuver through deep mud that would slow any army sallying forth to hunt it. Fighting such a beast is a puzzle in and of itself. The creature is half the battle, if you will. Now, humor me for but a moment. Allow me to tell you a story. Envision a farmstead, remote in its location, besieged by pests that threaten to ruin its harvest. Enter the enterprising farmer Delgary, who, upon the advice of explorer Hadley Erridge, captures a live Hydra from the vast swamp bordering his farmstead. This beast was young, of course, and initially confined, it was eventually released into the field where it wreaks havoc amongst the local wildlife and pests alike, driving them away with its sheer presence. However, this Hydra, pregnant and far from the swamp, begins to nest by a nearby pond, complicating matters. Outraged by this unexpected turn of events, Gary hires skilled warriors to slay the beast. Unfortunately for them all, the beast was now much older and much more formidable. It had grown an additional head since the last time our farmer had seen it. Fast forward 20 dead mercenaries and 1,000 golden fines, Gary realized one thing. You cannot tame nature itself. It's like a raging river. You can build a dam and reroute it, but you can never fully rid yourself of it. Now, Professor, you claim, what reason would anyone ever have to hunt a Hydra if it was so dangerous? Well, I'm glad you asked, young pupil. The Hydra's practical uses extend far beyond its menacing appearance. Its teeth can be fashioned into near indestructible tools and weapons, while its blood can be extracted and carefully distilled into potent potions of healing. Henceforth, the prices on supreme healing potions, They also use flecks from their blood to craft healing periapts of wound closure and other regenerative items, amongst many other things. Henceforth, why these beasts are valuable, if able to be felled, of course. That I urge you not to do, lest you perish in many pieces down its multi-wriggling gullets. With all of this in mind,
let's jump into the 2014 stat block and see what we can do better. Alright, here we are. 2014 Hydra from the Monster Manual. What are we working with here? We got a huge monstrosity. It is unaligned, so that means it's quote-unquote naturally occurring, and it has no alignment. Its armor class is 15, its hit points are 172, it's got a speed of 30 feet and then a swimming speed of 30 feet, giving it 60 speed total. Its ability score modifiers look good with 20 strength, 20 con. That's pretty strong for a huge creature. We have a skill of perception. We have senses for dark vision of 60 feet. It is a challenge rating 8 monster. Has a proficiency bonus of +3, and it speaks no languages. Here's where the traits are on this stat block. This is what makes the Hydra truly unique. I don't think any other creature in the game does this, to my knowledge. So, it can hold its breath for 1 hour. That's not going to ever really be relevant unless you somehow shove it into a bag of holding. That's the only scenario I can think of. I guess it could go underwater. It means it could be underwater for 1 hour, basically. Multiple heads. This is the Hydra ability. This is what makes the creature, essentially. So, this Hydra has 5 heads. While it has more than 1 head, the Hydra has advantage on saving throws against being blind, charmed, deafened, frightened, stunned, and knocked unconscious. Whenever the Hydra takes 25 or more damage in a single turn, one of its heads dies. If all its heads die, the Hydra dies. But at the end of its turn, it grows 2 heads for each of its heads that died since its last turn, unless it has taken fire damage since last turn. And then for every head that it regrows, it gains 10 hit points. The problem with this is, as soon as your players figure out fire damage is all it takes, a single point of fire damage is all it takes to stop it from regenerating, the creature essentially is just a hit point pool, because they just chop the heads off, ping it with a point of fire damage. They could even say, oh, I take a torch and I hit it with the torch for 1 point of fire damage. And it's very swingy, because if they don't have fire damage, and I'm not sure if you realize this when you read this ability, there is no maximum limit to how many heads this creature can have. In the wiki, it says they're known to have up to 50 heads at a maximum. That's like what the body can handle before it literally cannot move anymore. So potentially, it could regrow its heads up to 50 times and have 50 melee attacks. That would be absolutely ridiculous, but it could happen. The Hydra's it's a steamrolling monster if you don't stop its heads from regrowing. So yes, it can go above its starting head amount of 5. That's how, I believe the Monster Manual art, it doesn't even have 5 heads, it has more than 5. And then we have another ability here. We have reactive heads. For each head the Hydra has beyond 1, it gets an extra reaction that can only be used for opportunity attacks, so you're not getting away from this creature without getting hit. And they could make multiple attacks with their reaction, I believe. And then it has Wakeful. While the Hydra sleeps, at least one of its heads is awake. It comes down to the actions now. It's unique how it's worded. Well, not how it's worded, but it's the only creature I know that can do this. So it makes as many bite attacks as it has heads, which is interesting. That's where if you keep cutting its heads off and it keeps regrowing them and you're not burning it and getting it to stop regrowing heads, and you cut 2 heads off, well, it's going to have 4 extra heads next turn. and then it just compounds over itself until you can get up to 50 heads technically. So that, if you could just imagine, that's 50 d10 piercing damage if all of the heads hit you. The odds of that happening are very slim, because I'm pretty sure once the players realize they can't kill this creature, they're going to run away. But the odds of it even regrowing a head once they learn it can take, all it takes is 1 fire damage and it stops regenerating. It kind of falls off. So I'm going to show you what my solution is with an extra surprise. You'll find out what that is in a minute. Alright, everybody stay calm. The monstrosity is here. This is my original idea for the Hydra. It's very hard to rework a creature that has already got a very potentially deadly ability in its stat block, with it being able to regenerate heads, go above the amount of heads it started with, and get even more damage. You have to be very careful with what you change. So I had to increase the challenge rating. So we're going to start from the top before I get ahead of myself. I increased the armor class to 19. The hit points are at 370, 20 d20 plus 160. I gave it a speed of 50 feet and a swimming speed of 50 feet. The strength increased to 25, the dex is at 12, the con is at 26, intelligence 4, wisdom 16, charisma 7. I chose those because the Hydra is unaligned. It is a force of nature. It is not intelligent, it is not on the same level as a dragon, but I still want it to be up in that echelon of big scary monsters that can put up a fight on their own. Saving throw proficiencies. I gave it saving throw proficiencies. So it has a strength saving throw proficiency and a con saving throw proficiency. Those are its strengths, so you're really not gonna get through a 14 strength saving throw or a 15 con save. It is a perception skill of plus 17, so good luck hiding from it. Also, its passive perception is 27, so yeah, sorry rogues, but it ain't gonna be easy to hide from a multi-headed beast. Dark vision 60 feet, and then of course the challenge rating is 22. The proficiency bonus is 7. Before I move into the abilities section, let me give you my thought process here. So I looked at dragons immediately when I started thinking about the Hydra and how to upscale it or make it cooler, better, whatever you want to call it. I wanted to follow the philosophy of they get stronger as they age, just like dragons, because they technically have a weird conjunction in their backstory with dragons and Tiamat and all that. But so I made this Hydra an ancient Hydra with the assumption that there are other Hydras below it, and there's one other Hydra above it. That's the scariest one. That's like a campaign ending boss. But we'll talk about the other ones really quickly. So essentially there's a Hydra hatchling, a young Hydra, an adult Hydra, and then ancient Hydra. So we are above adult Hydras with this one. So alright, let me get into the ability scores. Or not the ability scores, the special traits, sorry. So the first one is multiple heads. It's the same, however, you'll notice this Hydra, because it's been alive for so long, has 7 heads instead of 5. So even in the artwork, the Hydras have more than 5 heads, and I think it makes sense that as they age, similar to dragons, they get stronger. So a Hydra that's been along enough to be called an ancient Hydra probably has 7 heads as a baseline. So same old deal here. While it has more than 1 head, the Hydra has advantage on saving throws against being blinded, charmed, deafened, frightened, stunned, and knocked unconscious. Whenever one of the Hydra's heads takes 25 or more points of damage in a single turn, the head dies. If all its heads die, the Hydra dies. Here's the first special trait, and this is what makes the Hydra better than... I'm gonna throw coal from my blacksmith forge and deal a point of fire damage and stop it from regenerating. Sorry, kid. It ain't gonna happen like that anymore. So, adaptive regeneration. At the end of its turn, the Hydra grows 2 heads for each of its heads that died since its last turn. If the Hydra takes fire damage, the following effects happen. So here we go. Whenever the Hydra takes fire damage, it must make a Constitution save with a DC equal to the amount of fire damage taken. On a success, the Hydra continues to regenerate on its next turn as normal. On a failed save, its regeneration is suppressed until the end of its next turn. So you can already see that you better bring out a lot of fire damage, and you better keep hitting it with fire damage and hope it fails the save when you bring it down to 0 hit points. You're going to see the Hydra regains 10 points for each head regrown. I didn't make any changes there because I didn't want to make it overpowered. It is a CR 22 though, keep in mind, so it is strong. We get 2 reactive heads. It's the same and nothing changed, but now beep 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 beep, get your pencils and papers out here, because if you're gonna send me hate mail over this one, I guess I'm gonna have to just take it. So, Unrelenting Terror. The Hydra dies only if it starts its turn with 0 heads remaining. If it drops to 0 hit points with heads still remaining, it falls prone and unconscious until the start of its next turn. So you have to cut all of the heads off of this creature to kill it. You can temporarily disable it if you bring it down to 0 hit points until it gets back to its turn, and then it wakes back up and regenerates, or doesn't regenerate depending on if you haven't cut all the heads off and hit it with fire damage. But it's a much more hardier creature that sort of lives up to its name now. Now you can't just whack it with a torch that you got off a sconce in the middle of the dungeon or wherever you're fighting this, probably with Yuan-Ti guards and other things like that. So everything else is the same. We got Hold Breath, Wakeful, except for this final ability here. Now, remember what I said about Hydras are forces of nature. They're not legendary like a dragon is, but instead they're mythic, which is a brand new trait that I stole from Baldur's Gate 3. I'll give it the credit. I stole it from Baldur's Gate. But this is Baldur's Gate's version of legendary resistance. So this is called a mythic resistance. It's called legendary resistance in Baldur's Gate, but I called it a mythic resistance. So it states that it can use it 3 times a day, just like legendary resistances, but it's slightly weaker because it has a chance to fail now. A very low chance, keep in mind, but there's a chance. So the Hydra can choose to add a +10 bonus to one of its saving throws. It can decide to do so before or after rolling the saving throw, but before the result is determined. So that makes it feel like now it's not really a legendary creature, it's just a Hydra that's managed to survive long enough to become ancient and grow to the size of Gargantuan. I think that's a cool ability. I couldn't think of anything else to add to the traits other than something that would have made the Hydra incredibly overpowered, and there's no way I can put that on at least this stat block, but I'll show you a different version after this. And yes, I spoiled it. This is going to be a triple feature video. I'm going to show you 2 other stat blocks after this. Don't get excited yet, we're still on the first one. So, multi-attack. You can see, as I do, I gave it a bunch more actions. So the Hydra makes as many bite attacks as it has heads, and it has 7 heads starting off. Keep that in mind. That's very scary already. Each bite attack can be replaced with a fling, a swallow attack, or 2 bite attacks can be used to make 1 rip and tear attack. And I'm sure you can feel the tension building as I get lower on this action list here. So let's start off with bite. This is the basic bite attack, but I upgraded the damage because the Hydra is now a gargantuan creature instead of a large creature. So technically I could make it a 4d10 piercing damage because it's gargantuan, but it's not the bite attack's not a weapon, so it's its jaws, and it's still strong. Don't worry. So I gave it 5 more extra feet of reach, so it has 15 feet of reach now instead of 10. It does 2d10 plus 7 piercing damage. That's 7 bite attacks. Keep in mind, 7 bite attacks at 2d10 plus 7, so an average of 18 damage a hit out of 7 attacks. If the target is a large or smaller creature, it is grappled in the Hydra's mouth. Yeah, it's an auto grapple. Until this grapple ends, the target is restrained and the Hydra can't bite another target with that same head. So if you look at a lot of Hydra artwork, you always see the heads grabbing somebody, lifting him up, whipping him around. This is a gargantuan Hydra, so I envision this version of the Hydra being able to just swallow you. It's got the same type of ability as a Kraken. So we go to swallow. So the Hydra has to make a bite attack against a medium or smaller creature it's grappling. If the attack hits, the target is swallowed, and the grapple ends. While swallowed, the creature is blinded, restrained. It has total cover against attacks and other effects outside the Hydra, and it takes 6d6 acid damage at the start of each of the Hydra's turns. If the Hydra takes 30 damage or more on a single turn from a creature inside it, the Hydra must succeed on a DC 21 con save at the end of that turn or regurgitate the swallowed creature, which falls prone in a space within 10 feet of the Hydra. If the Hydra dies, the swallowed creature is no longer restrained by it and can escape from the corpse using 15 feet of movement, exiting prone. Yes, this is a very incredibly strong creature in melee. It is devastating to fight. You, as a group of adventurers, probably should get help when fighting something like this. You should not be just going in with 5 characters and fighting it. I like the design philosophy that there is always something bigger, scarier, and deadlier than you out there in the world. Even if you're a level 20 character, this creature is hard to kill. It's a formidable foe. So let's get into the second ability. This is the iconic, like, every depiction of a Hydra, you always see this happen to somebody. So this is called Rip and Tear. The Hydra uses 2 heads to attempt to tear apart a creature it is grappling. The creature takes 4d10 plus 7 slashing damage, and I said its movement speed is reduced by 10 until it receives magical healing. If this damage would reduce the creature to 0 hit points, it is ripped in half and swallowed by the Hydra. The 2 heads are fighting over the one body that they picked up, and then they rip it in half and they swallow it. The movement speed reduction is, I took that from my fire giant, or not my fire giant, my frost giant's rip attack, where it's like, it's pulling you apart and your muscles are tearing, your tendons are tearing. So you have essentially like a mini lingering injury until you get healed by it. It could even be 1 point of magical healing. So healing potion works, clerical healing works. Has to be some sort of magical healing though. Okay, let's move on to the second to last attack here. We have Fling. 1 large or smaller creature grappled by the Hydra is thrown up to 60 feet in a random direction and knocked prone. If a thrown target strikes a solid surface, the target takes 1d6 bludgeoning damage for every 10 feet it was thrown. If the target was thrown at another creature, that creature must succeed on a DC 16 dexterity saving throw or take the same damage and be knocked prone. It's random, so it doesn't get to choose which way it throws the creature, and I sort of envision that being the proper way that a Hydra would work, because Hydras only have 1 brain, but they have all these other heads. So 1 head has the main brain in it. You never know which head it is, of course, but yeah, it makes it just more of a chaotic fight. You're fighting a gargantuan monstrosity, and keep in mind, gargantuan doesn't necessarily mean that's the largest the creature can get. There's still creatures that are quote-unquote titan-sized, which the step above an ancient Hydra would probably be titan-sized, like the teaser picture I posted in my community part on my YouTube channel. But anyways, let's get into the final ability here, because I still have 2 other stat blocks to go over. We have Acid Spray. It's a recharge of 5 to 6. This is its only ranged attack, so it is very weak to ranged based creatures. The Hydra exhales a 60-foot line of acid that is 10 feet wide. Each creature in that area must make a DC 23 dexterity saving throw. Creatures grappled by the Hydra automatically fail this save. On a failure, the creature takes 1d8 acid damage per head attached to the Hydra on a failed save, or half as much on a success. So you could picture if you're being held by it, yeah, you're sticking a hose up to your face and you're turning it on, but it's acid and it's melting your skin off your face. And also, it's a DC 23 dexterity saving throw. It's pretty scary. This is a scary monster. This is what I envisioned the much more terrifying, imposing ancient Hydra to be. Remember, there's other Hydras beneath it though, so there's adult Hydra, young Hydra, and Hydra hatchlings. And then there's one above this, even higher up, that makes it even scarier. But I didn't make a stat block for that because it's hard to balance world-ending creatures, but I might make one in the future, we'll see. Let's get into the other two stat blocks though, and I'll explain what my thought process was on those. Alright, this is Big Hydra number 2. Now this is not the same category of Hydra that we just looked at. This is not the adult version of the Hydra we just looked at. This is an entirely different take on the Hydra. So this is a Lernaean Hydra. This is like more akin to the Herculean Hydra. This is what I came up with. You might not like this one. I thought it was interesting. I wanted to give it something representative of its lore, but I could not put these on the other stat block. It would have made it way too strong. It would have been just a TPK, guaranteed almost. So with this one, everything is the same except for Legendary Venom, the trait that it has. So Legendary Venom is just giving you a little flavor text of what you're working with. So the acidic blood from the Hydra is said to be so virulent that even its scent was deadly. One drop twice diluted is enough to kill an entire ecosystem of fish in a river. Its toxic blood gives it the following effects. When a creature within 10 feet of the Hydra hits it with piercing or slashing damage, a 10-foot radius cloud of toxic fumes spews from the wound. Each creature in that area must make a DC 22 Constitution saving throw, or take 4d6 poison damage, and have their maximum hit points reduced by an amount equal to the poison damage taken. This reduction lasts until the creature is targeted by a greater restoration spell or similar magic. If this reduces the creature's maximum hit points to 0, the creature dies. This venom from the Hydra is supposed to be the most potent venom, the most potent poison in the entire world, is what I gathered from reading it. It is god-slaying levels of dangerous. So I wanted to make it dangerous without it just instantly killing you. You'll see this one does not have the ability to grapple you under the actions. I didn't give it any other abilities because any more that I added to this stat block was going to make it too challenging, too hard to balance. I was thinking about giving it some sort of attack where it could slam its head. I might add this post video. I might upload it to my Discord with a slam attack that can stun a creature, perhaps. But I did not want to add too many abilities to this because it's already too strong with that poison ability, and that's when you're hitting it. I guess not too bad. Also, this Hydra only has 5 heads, not 7 like the last one we looked at. But anyways, let's get into the actions. Its bite attack does a simple 1d10 piercing damage. Didn't change from the base Hydra, but it has one recharge ability called Lethal Exhalation. The Hydra exhales a cone of virulent gas in a 60-foot cone. Each creature in that area must make a DC 22 Constitution saving throw. On a failed save, a creature takes 10d10 poison damage, and its maximum hit points are reduced by an amount equal to the poison damage taken. This reduction lasts until the creature is targeted by a greater restoration spell. On a successful save, the creature takes half damage. Yeah, it's pretty akin to how the Hydra in the Herculean stories would be with it. It has a poisonous gas that it can breathe, and its blood is this acidic, venomous, incredibly dangerous blood. That was my second take on the Hydra. These are essentially abilities that I had to put them on a separate stat block because I felt like if I put these on the same stat block, it would be way too strong. But if you want to, you can take these and put these on the same stat block. Your players might be incredibly mad at you for it. You didn't get it from me. If you do that, we'll say that I didn't show you this stat block. I'm gonna definitely probably add now that I'm looking at it, because this empty space down here really bothers me. I might add an ability for it to do a slam attack with its head, and then it could possibly stun you on a failed save, mayhaps. Something like that. But we will move in to the final stat block now. Do not worry, my friends. There is still content yet. And here we are with the final stat block. I wanted to make one for the lower level campaigns out there that are running and want to use a Hydra but don't want to wait until their characters are able to take on a CR8 monster with the basic Hydra. So this is a Hydra hatchling. Now this is in the same universe as the first Hydra that I showed you. So this is essentially what you would look at in the first stage of its growth cycle. So you'll see it's an armor class of 15, 33 hit points, 30 movement speed, and 30 feet of swimming. And then it has really low ability scores. It's 13 strength, 12 dex, 13 con, 2 int, 10 wisdom, 5 charisma. Has a saving throw of +3 for strength and con. Perception +4, dark vision still 60 feet, passive perception, all that. Its challenge rating is 3, so you could use multiple of these. Be very careful doing that, very dangerous, because you'll see why. This is essentially, this is a low level boss fight, basically. Almost, it depends, I guess, but you could use 2, but that's, you're pushing it. It's got a proficiency bonus +2. The abilities are the special traits are the same, except for the baby Hydra starts only with 4 heads, and the damage threshold for the baby Hydra's heads are only 15, so your characters just have to deal 15 or more damage in a single turn. So a multi-attack could cut the head off. Pretty much anything can destroy a head with 15 damage. I think level 3 characters can output 15 damage pretty reliably. We go up to the adaptive regeneration. The only thing that's different for the baby Hydra is it only regains 5 hit points instead of 10 for each head regrown. And then we have, of course, remember, we have Unrelenting Terror. If it only dies if it starts its turn with 0 heads remaining, but if it does drop to 0 hit points, it does fall prone unconscious. So there's a chance that you can deal a killing blow while it's quote-unquote dead but not dead. And then we get into the actions. The baby Hydra is simple. It still only has a bite attack. It doesn't do anything else but the bite attacks, which is, I know it's uncharacteristic of me, but I wanted to make, it's already a little complicated as it is with all of the special traits that you have to keep track of. I didn't want to add too many other things, and looking at its lore, their tails aren't really strong enough to make tail attacks. Their claws are really low to the ground, and it's really hard for them because of their low center of gravity to lift their bodies up and attack with their claws. So there's really not much you can do without making the creature overwhelmingly strong. You could probably, if I had to think of it looking at it now, you could probably give the Hydra an attack that goes for maybe the ankle and pulls the creature and knocks it prone. But again, this is only a medium monstrosity too, so these aren't really big creatures. This is more akin to like a, you know, you could probably put this in a tribe of goblins and say that they stole a Hydra's egg and they hatched it, and now they're trying to raise it, but it's eaten half of them, and they just locked it in a cage, so it's like an optional fight if you want, or you can just release it and have it wreak havoc on the goblins. Something like that. Yeah, that's gonna do it for my Hydras. We'll move on to the outro section now. Post-editing Anthony here. Just wanted to tell you guys, thank you so much for the 1,000 views on my Ogres But Better video. I am speechless. I never thought I would see a video that I put so much time into get 1,000 whole views on it. 1,000 people have watched a video that I made. It's a crazy feeling. I really appreciate the support, the comments on my videos. I appreciate everything that you guys are saying, the feedback, any criticism, the likes, the comments, just everything. It's got me ecstatic, man. I didn't think I'd get this far, but I'm glad that if you put effort into your passion, it just shows that people will come if you put the right amount of love into anything. So yeah, thank you guys. This is DM Dungeon Mastery, and I will see you in the next one.